I had a recent subscriber reach out to me and talk to me about something that they learned about that I hadn't heard of before. I know it's kind of strange, but there's a couple of times when people reach out and it's something new. This had to do with something called, I've heard of user stories, I've heard of all different types of stories, but someone wanted to talk to me about value stories. And I get value stories from a sense of marketing, but I've never really heard it translated in the agile setting from more VUCA type stories. So I thought it would be fun to dive in a little bit and talk about how translating user stories into value stories can help drive action and what that means, maybe even from a little bit of a UX perspective, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Because communicating designs, that's not enough anymore. In the past, we used to just be able to send over a design brief and everything was good, and the developers would dive in and people would dive in and we'd have translation and voila, we got something. But I've seen an increasing number of designers recently who don't realize that design communication is indeed a two-way street. There's been an increasing focus on soft skills like design communication to navigate this turbulent market. However, this doesn't just mean teaching your team about how UX thinks and what their point of view is. It also means knowing enough about the business priorities to translate user findings and design recommendations into terms that they understand. When I say that, people often think about or think this means learning about KPIs, metrics, and related subjects. And while learning those are certainly helpful, that's not the only way to translate designs for the business. One other more straightforward way of doing this could be translating your customer story into a value story. So I think it's just different focuses. So if you think about the two different story types, I believe it was, I'm trying to think of the author. There's a book called Stories That Stick. I want to say it was Kendra Hall. It talks about customer story and value story. It talks about the difference between the both. As a UX professional, they often gravitate towards wanting to tell a customer story. These are great, but they're also flawed. They're imperfect stories that our users provide about the individual user experience, whether they're through user testing, interviews, other methods. We aggregate these into larger themes by giving an essential summary of critical points, and we list usability problems, prioritize them by how common or severe they are, and recommend specific actions. This should be enough for minor changes like button placement or text, but you may have firsthand experience with how difficult it is to convince your team to take a harder or more costly action through using this type of story. Businesses aren't necessarily looking for a customer story, they're looking for a value story. So a value story centers around expressing a product's intrinsic values, benefits, and unique selling points rather than focusing on just the user themselves. It focuses on how the product interacts with those users and not just isolated to an individual user, which I think is really, really interesting. As a result, product owners are often focused on the aha moments or light bulb moments. Now, if you've been in one of my classes before, you know that I use this Oprah aha light bulb moment technique quite a bit in my class to talk about when people realize the value of what they've just learned instead of just saying, hey, that provided a great experience, right? I want to get both of those in there. So translating your customer story into one that focuses on value can be extremely helpful in helping a team understand and engage with what you found. You may be thinking to yourself, that's great, but UX can't tell this type of story. These stories might involve statements like, we expect this design change will impact adoption rates by 6%, which is stuff that qualitative research can't show. However, that's not always the case. One of the greatest value stories and marketing campaigns didn't use facts, figures, or even spoken word to convince people. It showed the intrinsic value of the product. When you think of value stories like Apple, the shot on an iPhone marketing campaign, right? Not just convincing people to buy an expensive phone, but it made its way into internet culture with memes about it. It was a ton of free marketing for Apple. And if you're a business executive, you would have wanted a campaign like that for your product. Absolutely. But the weird thing is, it was a marketing campaign to showcase the iPhone's great new camera for recording high definition videos and photos. But they never mentioned a single detail about it. Many advertisements didn't even show the phone. It just showed an image. That's kind of tricky. Nobody would have paid attention if the campaign were just like any others with words like HD camera, capable of recording 4K video. Who cares? If that's plastered all over a phone with a background, That's the traditional value-based approach to quantifying why your phone is superior. However, the shot on an iPhone commercials focused on a different aspect of value that appeal more to the users. What is the value that a user will get if they buy this product? The TV commercials and the print ads focused on showcasing random, funny, and cool photos and videos with only 3 to 4 words shown. Shot on iPhone 6, 7, whatever it is, X. As a result, the unspoken message about value was loud and clear. Here are all these fantastic new photos that our users have shot on an iPhone, and if you buy an iPhone, you can do that too. But they didn't have to say a word. They were telling a value of what's being proposed. That's what a value story is about. It's a very powerful tool. Rather than saying our new software will improve your efficiency by 20%, show the story of a user who can leave work on time because he's done with his job, or maybe even leaving a few minutes early. You might think that's great for Apple, but I'm just a regular person. I'm just a Bill, an ordinary Bill sitting here in Capitol Hill. Oh, sorry. I don't have the resources, the budget, or time to create more user stories that are value based. I just need to live with what I got, translate things later. What I could find is if you take the time to take specific user findings, such as 3 out of 5 users getting frustrated when trying to check out, you might add additional detail. They're frustrated because the form fields ran counter to how most e-commerce platforms do. So they often started filling in the wrong information before correcting it. For example, your credit card number might be in the address field or vice versa, highlighting a usability issue and telling your team about it in a customer testimonial way might convince them to change things. However, we can translate this to a value story by focusing on just a few simple questions. Does the task intrinsically have value, or is it taking us to reach an aha moment? What really is the user's problem around this task? What are they experiencing? What do you recommend to fix this issue? Value may be controversial, but it's a necessary way to persuade audiences. Value could be the loaded term in a moment, but at the same time, it's become an ugly word in the UX community because people don't understand how to apply it correctly. When the business mentions value, they're hopefully not asking you to justify your existence. Instead, they ask, can you translate your findings into something that I can more easily understand? Being able to do this with your design communication skills is a critical part of using your soft skills to persuade the team. Storytelling is one of those near universal ways across all domains to persuade your team to do that. While it's essential to understand the ROI of UX, which makes sense, and some of its business value, the ability to translate your findings, user stories, and more into ones that speak about value may be more relevant in your daily life. So if you want us to understand how to provide value, understand a value-based story. It provides a way to respond to such loaded terms and persuade your team to take action by presenting their findings in terms your business can understand. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.